All steps for scientists for mankind.
Let's go.
Okay, so we just finished watching the Mandela Effect, the movie that just came out December 6th. I'm recording this just for a few comments. I highly recommend everyone go watch this movie. And I think I'm going to have to watch it a couple of times because I have a feeling there's a few little things in there, like there's a few subtle little plays in there. Yeah. Well, number one, it's the first quasi-mainstream thing to come out that doesn't toss off the Mandela Effect as, memory lapses or, oh, you're just oh, you're just crazy, or, the first mainstream movie I've seen that tackles it head on and actually tries to give it a structured, like really look at theories, etc. Interesting. Pardon me, everyone. I choked on my coffee about 10 minutes ago and I'm still choking on it. It's interesting because he portrays certain little what would we call them, video effects that are used through the movie, where all of a sudden you get like that kind of like almost things aren't quite clear, things aren't quite right. And there's the one part when he's in the car and he starts it and you can see it's like he's shimmering, he's shaking, and he starts hearing the buzzing in his ears, and I'm like, oh, I have so been there. I have so experienced that. Some interesting pieces. That's all I'm going to say.
Now, did she start glitching back? Because you know how he came into the new timeline, right? And then she started losing it. Was she glitching back, or was she existing in the other timeline and was bleeding through to this timeline?
Okay, so yeah, here's my thought on that. This is what came to me. At the beginning, when he's trying to explain to her what the Mandela Effect is, it was very obvious from the examples that he gave that she saw it. She saw them. She knew them. She knew they were wrong. The Monopoly man not having the monocle was absolutely wrong. She got that. She was like, well, that's just too strange. She already saw them. She knew they were in existence, yet she was doing that, what we call the denial, right? It's like, I'm not going to look at this. I will not look at this. You can't make me look at this. I will not. Literally refusing to even discuss it. And we've seen that. We've seen people who are literally, even though they can see the Mandela Effect, they can see and they can agree with you, they will not. And it's like every particle of their being refuses to accept it and will do anything to not look. As you get into the movie, after the changes start happening, the reality is flickering, and they get the daughter comes back, and he comes through the other side of it. Of course, he has the complete freak out, but he comes through the other side of it, starts recognizing, okay, she's not gonna disappear again, like she's actually here. And I think the wife, it's that, and that deeper consciousness, in the deeper section of consciousness, her deeper mind is screaming, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this isn't right, this isn't right, this isn't right, where she didn't want to look at it because she's very much part of that matrix, if you will, the denial She doesn't want to look at it. But the back, you can't block out your subconscious. Your subconscious is there, and the subconscious is screaming at her. You're not, Sam, the daughter, you're not supposed to be here. You're not supposed to be here. How are you here? And she finally ends up literally on an unconscious level, I think, having like a psychotic break. Where she can't, the two realities cannot mesh in her mind because she refuses to accept that reality isn't what she says, what she thinks it is.
It could also be
like she can't break through.
Hold on, Zero. Go ahead, JC.
It could also be processing power. In the beginning, you notice there was an emphasis on processing power.
Yeah.
Processing. So how many people had enough or were delivered enough processing power where the others weren't? So they became the NPCs, right?
Well, okay, so here's my question on that, because the whole processing power question keeps coming up over and over again. And like what they discussed during the movie, in order to render the game, the computer doesn't render the whole game. It only renders that piece which is being observed within the game in that moment, right? And I mean, there's been a couple of real clever things, like, there's the little meme type thing that kind of came by in UnFuckers a couple times over the last year. And it's like, the game can only render so many beings at once, which is why we sleep.
Yeah.
Because we have to sleep so in order to give terms to allow other players to play. But then the other question that comes up is the fact of some of us, keep falling asleep for no reason in the middle of the day. All of a sudden you're just like, oh my God, I just have to go to sleep. Is that because there's just not enough rendering power? There's not enough bandwidth. There's not enough power to support. And so your character is just like taken out. And vice versa, the nights that you can't sleep and you stay up all night.
Yeah.
Because
oh my God, great observation, Danny.
How do you even know you're waking up in the same place when you wake up? Like in the same timeline, But like, I've seen that whole process lay out with people, and I'm so glad that they addressed that process of like, when they see it, then they recognize it, then you tell them what that means about reality, and then suddenly it's like does not compute.
Yeah.
And then they just shrug it off, and like can we just stop talking about this, and then just like whatever, and then just go on as if like.
That's one of the reasons why that is one of the reasons why I do talk about bots or NPCs or however we want to imagine. Because they can't. That's a program piece, and they can't break through that.
They can't break through the cognitive dissonance. Like they just can't. Like.
Hey, Danny. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Dawn. Yep.
Okay. So, you know how I always say I wake up in the morning and I'm like, okay, which one am I on today? Like literally.
Yeah.
But I think, it goes back to like when you went on your trip, so that it lends credence to what is seen and what is not, because in those alchemistic principles of possibilities. So like, for example, I stepped out of my routine and drove here.
Yep.
Yeah. Right? Like you stepped out of your routine.
And went to Spain.
Yeah, and that triggered all these other possibilities out in the sense of the hologram itself.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, that's very interesting, Dawn, because that was part of my thought structure that I was trying to put together when we were away in Spain and when we got back from Spain, because like I said, even the girls, even though they remained here, it was outside their norm because we were not here.
Exactly.
Here
so
with the dogs by themselves being responsible people, but outside of the norm.
Mm-hmm.
And look at all the glitching that happened.
But you're starting to see it now, though.
But it's not. This is because this is the one thing I keep coming up to. Okay, so this is when you sit here and you go, okay, you're all figments of my imagination. Must be, and this is my hallucinatory fucking like acid trip. Because you sit there and you have these moments, and I'm putting this as a joke, but many of us have had these moments where we've said things. For example, for me, that trip to Spain has kicked it off to complete epic insane levels of every day there's a new fucking twist, a new fucking, well, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
But it's not just for me. It's for other people too. Like, is it just coincidental that I happened to go to Spain at the same time that all these things started happening? Or am I living in my own fucking little reality bubble, and all of you are in my little reality bubble with me, and therefore my reality is different from your reality because you guys have your own reality bubble? Like, do you know what I'm saying? When you get into these deeper fucking trying to work out the shit of how it touches on each other.
Yeah.
There's an answer to that, Danny.
Was that, Maureen?
Yes, and both. It's both, because for some
Exactly.
of us, it's true. It works that way. For others of us, it's not true, and it doesn't work that way. We commonly label those people terms like NPC or bots. They don't experience it that way. They experience a rather uniform, predictable, programmed life. But certain of us within the human community,
The living souls.
she would say the living souls, others would phrase it differently, but you know what I'm talking about. They operate under a separate motivating factor than the program. Yeah. They're programmed all right from the external, from the cradle onward by the system. We all have been experiencing that, right? But there's something different within us. We all recognize it. We don't know what it is. We're searching for it. We talk about it. All of us talk about it one way or another. And that is that heart energy that we sometimes refer to it as, or intuition, or motivation, or inspiration, all kinds of words to talk about this X factor kind of thing going on that makes us different from the average bear. And of course, the system is telling us, no, you're crazy. And when we spot you, we're going to, if you go too much, we're either going to silence you about it, or we're going to put you in a fucking institution if you get too far out.
Yeah, with some drugs.
Yeah, that's the way it works. So the answer is yes. It's true what you said of yourself, but you're not the only one experiencing versions of it. But they're all unique and individual, but we're still meshing together.
Okay. I got something here I just want to add, because Mercedes just made probably one of the most fundamental statements to me. She just said, we are all unpredictable.
Yeah, that goes with it too.
Perfectly stated.
Okay, so here's the thing. Here's the piece to that then. Every one of you, today, tomorrow, depending on where your time zone is, because it's bedtime for me, go do something unpredictable. Go do something completely fucking different. Yeah. Go do something that is outside your predicted pattern of what you would normally do, and then see what happens. I mean, something crazy like, Nancy, go for a hike in High Park, or go for a swim at a you know what I mean? Like, pick something that you would not normally do, and then go do it. Because this is the thing. I'm doing a lot of different things right now. I'm noticing, like, for example, I've kind of switched up everything. I've switched up where my focus is. I've switched up where I'm putting my energy. I've switched up all these things. And that's another factor. So like Spain, the trip to Spain may have been the kickoff point, but since coming home, I have now a completely new focus on what I'm working on, what my goals are in the immediate. So I'm wondering if that He made, if you look at it from the whole point of the movie, when he's talking about an AI that's running a matrix, if just looking at it just from the computer simulation concept, when he starts making changes, the computer starts trying to change things to make it work, to shut him down. But in doing so, it could only do certain things. Right? So it gave him back, he got his Sam back. But the rest of the program still started failing. That kind of a change did not compute. And then we saw what happened with his wife. We saw what started to change with the other people around him. We saw things like, for example, that Professor Fuchs all of a sudden committed suicide. But before, prior to, so in other words, he'd met with him 2 weeks before, and then he finds out 2 months ago that he's committed suicide. He did the unexpectable. He did the unpredictable and did what the program could not control within the algorithm. So is that the key? Get up, do something unpredictable. If everyone starts not acting in their predictable manner, get up in the morning, have your coffee, go on Facebook, do your scroll through Facebook, get up, go do dishes. If we were to start really randomizing, and I mean really randomizing our actions, what would happen?
It separates you from common. It separates you from common reality. So, like, one thing that Mari said totally made this click, and like whether there's and what you were saying, Danny, about like the fact that we all have our own individual reality bubbles, but yet there's this common reality. Well, in my mind, it just clicked. It's like a spectrum, right? There's the common reality that we all share, where you know, you go to the store, you have to buy milk, and there's no such thing as this really isn't a simulation. My back hurts, and like, you know what I mean? And that's where all the NPCs live, like where none of this stuff, like quantum physics is just a theory, like this is what it is. That's part of the spectrum. And then there's when we go off by ourselves in our rooms and, you know, turn on the internet and then explore deep cognitive rabbit holes that send our consciousness on this journey of like totally seeing the, like going down all the rabbit holes and seeing the different perspectives. And like, we are literally changing our reality, and we're like separating from this, you know, common reality. And we are, it's almost like our universe or our perception is totally going its own unique individual direction. And the reason why a lot of us, I mean, all of us here to make it to this chat are all professional rabbit hole dwellers, right? Which means we have the ability to separate from that common reality into these zones, right? And it's especially when you do something unpredictable that like cuts you out of your common reality, right?
Yeah.
And that combined with like these kind of subjects and thinking about those kind of things, like.
The mic is on.
Okay, hold on. Okay, hold on a second, Maury. Amina wanted to jump in here and say something too.
Sure.
Yeah, on that very subject, when in 2011 in July, something happened to me while I was dreaming, and it changed my reality. So while I was asleep, I had what could be described as a dream swipe, a blank dream, and a lucid dream awareness that my dream had gone. And then I had in the dream, or in the sleep, because there was no dream left, I was saying, where's my dream gone? That's all I could say. And something went through me like an electric bolt. And I had changed after that. So I woke up because of the bolt of electricity that went through me. And I completely changed my habits. So I was being random from July 2011 for many, many months, at least 6 or 8 months. And in that time, that weird thing that happened to me with that boatman, who I went, I had his business card in a file because he was in Malacca. I had everybody's business cards from Malacca in a file. And when I went to call him, his number was missing from my phone. But when I looked in the file, his business card was missing, but there was a space where his business card was.
Had been.
That's like an overlap, because if I was in a timeline where he never gave me a business card, then there wouldn't be a space. But when I was in a timeline, when I found out that he'd died 2 years before, and I'd seen him regularly because I took his boat, and I called him in advance to say, I'm coming, can I use your boat? This meant that there was some sort of glitch between two timelines that I was in. And I had been doing random things, like even if I was just going to the shops and I was walking from my house, instead of taking the same route that I always took, which was the most predictable route, I would cross the road in a different place, or I would turn around the block and walk on a different side of the street. And I would do that deliberately to be really aware and conscious, because I felt different inside. Something had snapped inside me that had changed me. So I would randomly walk into a shop that I'd never go to. I would randomly do something, and it completely changed my reality. So what you're saying is true. Things like that happen. And this guy who, I mean, only when I was informed that he'd passed away and he'd died in an accident on his motorcycle, that I realized that everyone else is agreeing to that reality, and suddenly it became my reality. Because I couldn't find a way to
make it
to switch back. Yeah. But there were two cards missing from that file. One was a taxi driver, and his number was missing from my phone at the same time. But now I looked recently, like a month ago, and the taxi driver's number is back in the file. So, but it's not back in the phone. So it's back in as a business card in the file. So now I know that there's something happening again. And maybe the convergence of timelines is happening now. Now 2011 to 2019, 2012 to 2019, because it was after about 8 months of this thing happening to me in July 2011, I spent it was February 2012 when all this started happening. But I'd spent that 6 to 8 months of really doing random things.
Random things, being unpredictable. Do something that is completely unpredictable. Go ahead, Amina.
Really looking at things, really looking at things. So if you take, say, something that you put in your hand, study it. I was doing that as well. So let's say you just pick up a coaster from the table, observe it, really look at all the details. Look at, like, let's say if it's got cork, turn it upside down, stare at it. Look at all the details, all the lines, all the cracks, all the whatever, the pictures. Pay a lot of attention to something every time you do something. Try and remember to pay attention. And that was another thing I was doing.
This crystal was given to me by a friend. And it's a pale amethyst crystal. Or it's a pale amethyst crystal now. It has sat on my desk since I received it in a package as a present from a friend of mine. And never really paid much attention to it. And then suddenly, about 2-3 weeks ago, it came into my attention again. Now, it is much lighter in color than it was. It wasn't a deep, it wasn't like a really deep, but it was okay, there's your good analogy. It was more this color, not this pale, okay? And I started rolling it in my hand. And it's become a thing for the last 2 weeks to pick this up on my desk and play with it. And realizing it's not the right size. It's not the right size. It's smaller. It's smoother. And there's an oddity in one side. There's a slight flaw on one side where it's not quite completely circular. And I hadn't thought about it until, I mean, you were just talking about this now, because it's one of those things I just keep picking up and playing with it and going, this has changed. This has changed. But it's like an unconscious thought type thing. Like, it's not a thought you spend any time dwelling on. But when you just said that about looking around, that's one thing. And it's sitting right in front of me all the time now, all the time. And I keep looking at it, and I keep picking it up and holding it in my hand and going,
Grabbing your attention.
It keeps grabbing my attention, and it's like, it's not right. It's not that it's not the same. It's not the same as what it was.
Let me tell you something, Danny.
Dawn, you're going to have to come closer, love. It's very hard for us to hear from you when you're sitting back there, hon.
You sit down if you want.
One thing real quick, though. It just occurred to me that my personal glitch happened when I was doing something unusual.
Well, what I'm saying is in 2010, when I had my timeline shift.
And I was going to bring that up.
Okay, like, I didn't know any of these things that we talk about. So all I can tell y'all is that when I woke up and I was different, I was exhibiting different mannerisms, but it was still me. So what does that mean?
Maybe your different mannerisms is breaking through programming, and all of a sudden, like, kind of like your real mannerisms are coming through.
I don't know. And in this timeline, my mom was sick, and I can look back now and see it when I wouldn't have it. Really, I mean, there was a lot happening, but it was different, and everybody seemed a little different, but I knew I was different, but I just assumed they were being different because I had changed so much.
Yep.
But it's even like when I was selling you and I went and bought those cigarettes that time, and I went and I started packing them, and I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, like it was nothing. So that's the shit I'm talking about.
Yeah. Okay. So again, fucking chat has been off the hook here. Stephanie just said, so Danny's talking about doing random things. But I was just thinking that a lot of us actually live random life now. Lots of us don't have a regular schedule anymore. No regular meal times or school schedules. No 9-to-5 jobs for so many of us. I'm thinking that us living outside the norm or program is maybe what's causing these effects to accelerate. Chicken and the egg, though. Do you know, is it one of those things, like, because we started really talking about this year about springtime. We started talking about the fact of throwing out the schedules where it's like no longer, I remember talking about it on the show and saying, I'm not telling my kids when they have to eat. Like, okay, it's 9 o'clock in the morning, you need breakfast. Okay, it's noon, you need lunch. Okay, it's 3 o'clock, you need a snack. Okay, it's 6 o'clock, you need dinner. And we started just allowing the whole family to kind of let their time schedule, etc., go to what works for them in the moment. Eat when you're hungry, sleep when you're tired, type thing. Is that, and as that keeps going, is it like it's self-perpetuating wheel, right? The more we do something, the more we do random and detach from the we talked about it on Wednesday, detach from the program. The more we detach from the program, the more these things accelerate, which then causes us to detach more, which then accelerates more, and it becomes like a perpetual motion machine where it's just building and building and faster and faster and faster and faster and faster. Because all of us here have talked about these things, about doing things differently, doing things even from the fact of boredom. Right, Anne? Boredom. Because you're bored, you don't do the things you normally did. The things that you could do before that kept your attention, that made you happy to whatever it was, whether it was drawing a picture or going for a walk or whatever it was that was your thing, now has no interest for you. Therefore, you break that cycle. You're not doing what you normally would do because you're bored. You're trying to find something else to inspire you. But at the same time, as you're doing that, you're also breaking your cycles by not doing the normal things that you normally do.
So I missed the point of that. So we're going to do random things because we're accelerating the effect or stepping away from the effect, or we don't know.
Accelerate, for as far as I'm concerned, I don't know, breaking the program?
Mine
Break
might be a program.
the program. Like
Yeah.
fucking break the program by just keep doing the art,
Right.
the things
All
that the
right.
program can't
keep up. Can't
keep up.
project what you're gonna do.
Hey, thank you.
Okay.
It can't predict
Great.
what you're going to do and set up the rendering in advance.
Right.
So if you start
Okay,
doing,
so-
even like what Amina was saying about just like, if you're walking to the store, don't take
Yeah.
the route you normally take.
Right.
Take a completely fucking different route. Or go to a completely different store, like all together. And
Yeah, I've been doing this for a good couple of years now. It's very powerful exercise, and I think not only does it throw the AI off of you, but it also increases your possibilities exponentially at the same time. It's really a beautiful thing.
Well, even if we take a macro look at it, we were more robotic back in the 50s and 60s. Each decade, we get more random,
yeah.
you know.
Well, hence
And
why they're
so
trying to control
are
us.
we- Yeah, are we
Control everything.
breaking the system down? And notice on a macro level how everybody is going, we need change. We need change. The
Okay.
same old is not working anymore.
Okay, but here's the thing. And going back to what you just said about each decade, okay? What is the one thing that has happened though continuously every time there is a sudden change, a new, every time there's something new comes up, it gets co-opted. So i.e. in the 60s, hippie movement, free love, Woodstock comes up, and boom, it gets co-opted and pulled in. And we've had these, even if we look at music as an example, and Amina, you could probably speak to this more, and the whole idea of music, arts, etc. But if you look at the new styles of music that have come out, they come out and they're like fresh new. So like when the punk scene came out, it was completely different. It was something completely new. It drew in, and then it gets co-opted. And you have like grunge music. When the grunge scene first broke out, it came out, it was completely new. It was like an uncontrolled, it was
Raw. It was raw.
It was raw. Good word. Raw. And then it gets co-opted and it becomes like mainstream. And
Yeah.
in looking at the arts, all of it, and it doesn't matter, like, so even to the point of, you can say things like yoga used to be something that was very alternative, like nobody did it. But now it has been co-opted, and it's like, soccer moms go to yoga class after dropping their kids off at soccer practice. It's become co-opted, and that's the boring. Yeah, Rosanna, exactly. Now is boring. We search for the new, and I think that every time anything that's of a grassroots nature that we start to push through that's new, historically speaking anyway, the system co-opts it. The system co-opts it and makes it normal. Like, I'm sorry, but like 15 years ago, if you had blue hair, you were like, people would have been like, as they look, you walk down the street. Now, every other person has got like blue streaks in their hair, or fuchsia pink, or yellow, or whatever. My nose ring. I've had a nose ring for 25 years. I had a nose ring way before it was normal. And now it's not like no one even bats an eye, because nose rings are so mainstream now that no one even takes note. Like, people don't even notice when you talk to someone face to face, it's not like you can see them looking, oh, she's got a nose ring. Wow, that's strange. It's not, it's just tattoos. 15 years ago, if you saw a chick with a tattoo on her shoulder, you'd have been like, oh. Now it's everywhere, like people, tattoos. So it's like as if everything that comes up as raw and new, it instantly gets co-opted and then pushed out to make it mainstream. So therefore it becomes normal and it's acceptable and it's part of the program. Does that make sense?
That's because, yeah, anything new and raw is it gets your attention.
Yeah.
And they
Yeah,
can't
yeah,
come
yeah.
up with that. They can't do it. You notice that the what I term the living souls are always the ones that come up with that. Just like back in your shows, you remember when you were with Lisa, and we would come up with terms or certain things that we would bring up, and all of a sudden, it's in the news.
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
it's true. Go ahead, Zero.
I was just going to say it's because those things are on the peripheral of reality, right? And then, and the things on the periphery get sucked into the norm, right? And so, and it's only the people like us that like live on the fringes of reality, right?
Okay. So what did I open this show saying?
Oh, and by the way,
This is
you guys.
this is the first mainstream movie that deals with the Mandela effect straightforward. So if this is going out mainstream now, what's the effect of that going to be on reality, on pushing that out into the public perception?
Well, you just said there, Dee. Who's receptive to it, and how many of the masses are receptive to that? What they're showing, how many it triggers. It
Could be interesting.
I see it going both ways a little bit. They could use that to their advantage.
No, exactly what Sony's saying. It's coding the matrix.
Yes.
And
yes,
it's drawing all of us back into it.
Yep,
it's true. And I mean, that's true. It's a good point. They could use it to their advantage too. Yeah.
Well, it's normalizing it too. So what happens? All the tattoos, all the piercings, all that. Hey, it's become normalized, right? And so it's accepted. Now we start accepting it, right? And what happens? We can stay within it because we accept it. It becomes the reality, the current reality.
But I think that, who just said it? Stephanie just said, I kind of think this is going to backfire though. And that's exactly what I was just going to say. They have tried this on multiple things. They even, like you want to talk about the cabal, whatever, and they put certain pieces out. For example, we can scream about Facebook and how obnoxious they are and their shadow banning, et cetera, et cetera. And we can yell about the fact that Facebook is a CIA operative. It was a Department of Defense, DARPA project in order to basically encapsulate everyone's lives and keep track of them. Yes, but on the flip side of that, how many people have we woken up because of Facebook? I know personally, friends of mine who were from my maternal and infant health groups who knew nothing about this shit that I talk about. There are several of them in the UnFuckers group now. And the reason they're there is because they saw my posts and they started thinking and started holy shit and asking questions. So we've taken their tools that they tried to put in place to control us, and we've co-opted them and turned them into our own tool or weapon, if you want, to use against them.
That's the definition of creativity.
There you go. There's the perfect, exactly. There's the definition of creativity. Here's a spatula. Well, we're going to figure out what we can do with this spatula to fucking beat the shit out of this reality, right? So I agree with Stephanie. They might feed that out thinking that they can by drawing massive attention to it, they can either deride it, they can try and push it for their own process, but I don't think it's going to go that way.
Or maybe they're trying to push through some changes
Maybe.
to the
And
reality
and hope
itself.
that most people will just go, oh, it's another Mandela. Well, you know what? That's kind of true. That's actually kind of true, because how many of us have talked about, I said this on the show on Wednesday, the computer glitches with the website glitches. And 6 months ago when they'd happen, I'd be like, fucking again, what the hell? And the last time, and I had another one tonight, Ann, by the way. Now it's just like, you're like, Mandela Effect. Okay, on we go. So is that an acceptance of it? Is that what we need to guard against? Are they trying to create that? The make it so normal that you just accept it instead of
trying to ride the fucking line
ranting
of lore. You know, riding that fucking line of how they put it out. You know, yeah.
Can I screen share for 1 second?
Yeah.
I just think this visual while we're having this discussion would be fun.
Let's not forget too, guys, let's not forget, it's also, everything they do is multi-use. It has a that's even like what Duncan mentioned years ago. You know, everything they do, they put out has a multi-use to it. It's multi-purpose.
Okay, so what are we looking at? So a game rendering?
It's how a game renders as the camera is moved. So the whole world doesn't exist as a rendered space. It's only when the observer is moving their head. Does that make sense?
Yep. I mean, when we see this, I mean, it's
So
like my kids play Minecraft. And I mean, that's the perfect example of anyone who plays Minecraft. If your character's just fucking whizzing along, and all of a sudden you get to a point where you've maybe got that kind of almost like a bit of a lag, and you can see the landscape rendering in front of them as they're going along.
You know, I hate to say this, but this could give credence to what Lisa was talking about with the white screen and the white room.
Well, I mean, I have no doubts about the white screen and the white room and the whole that. I just think it's open to interpretation of what it actually is.
Well, yeah, I'm not going that far, but you see where I'm going with that, with our eyes and all of this.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, listen.
It certainly is amazing how it reframes the entire, like, okay, well, how many points of views are there really? I mean, like.
Yeah. Yeah, Sheila, no VR headsets required to create. Exactly. Yeah. No, I mean, and Linda, yeah, I mean, if you're talking about the White Room, I've seen the White Room so many fucking times in Dreamtime, it's not even funny. And it's one of the questions I ask, especially like the young people that I've spoken to who've had very much those kind of dreams. And it'll be like, okay, you know, they'll describe them. And I'll say, yeah, okay, that's the White Room. And yeah, I'm well aware of the White Room. We don't know what it is. We have lots of theories. But no, you're not losing your mind. There is a room. It's white. It depends on each person's perspective, but it's relatively within these dimensions type thing.
You know, I was just thinking about
Leonida, you are not a bot. Don't be silly.
I was just thinking about this predictability and how if we change up our actions to become random. Now, way back in the chat, Sheila mentioned, I wrote it down, she says, and just don't say it out loud so your phone hears you. I wonder if we're being watched so much because we are unpredictable beings, and you know,
that's the only way they can keep mapping is because we're becoming so unpredictable that they need the CCTV cameras watching every move we make to go, oh my God, she turned left. Fuck.
Yeah.
Why'd she turn left?
Better yet, when you go on that hike, leave your phone at home.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't take my phone anywhere. I don't even know where mine is. Oh, wait. There's my phone. It's like, there's my phone. Literally have to like blow the dust off. It has been sitting on the shelf since I came back from Spain.
So we're training the machine. We're training the machine code, right? When you start looking into the AI and all the coding, and they always have to teach it with something. I don't know if you saw the one where they decided they were going to come up with different ice cream flavors, and they fed the AI a bunch of, I don't, yeah, and it came up with stupid names like stinky dog, cherry, and stuff like that. And it was like, that's
like,
what the
okay, AI,
out.
yeah, but that's, see, but that's the shit that they put out to make you think the AI, like, is
True.
stupid,
True.
right? Like,
Yeah.
you've always got
guys.
this kind of thing. Meanwhile, if you can deride that aspect of it, then the overlord AI, or whatever you want to call it, that is running the simulation, never has to fear, right?
Oh my God, I just had a really, really out of the wow type thought. What if the Mandela Effect was dropped in to map our cognitive and emotional, I mean, all of that, guys?
I've asked that question too.
Because that is, I mean, how would you do it? That is exactly how you would do it, is drop in something so random. And come on, Mandelas are random as they come, okay?
Can't get much more random than that.
Yeah, and so we've just been talking about how we have to become random, right? Well, I mean, look at it from that different perspective too. They dropped this random thing, and what is the main focus today? AI, right? Putting everything into a simulation, bringing us into technology, not the opposite. So how do you do that? You drop in this huge random thing and see how people react.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah. I mean, and that's why I think that they drop so many different pieces in too, like it through the media, like the whole thing, like with the dress, and what color is this fucking dress, and what color is this fucking shoe, and I think these are all little mini tests that they drop in, even to the point of the what was this stupid AI robot thing that was so big last year? The girl robot, and they'd have it up on stage.
Sophie, wasn't her name Sophia, or was it
Sophia, or something like that? And they pushed it, and then they showed it doing silly things, and etc. And then you're like, you think I buy that this is your AI? I know this is not your AI. Like, I know this is like this mass-produced puppy doll that you've put out for the public to look at, to distract them from what really is going on in the background.
It's a crude, yeah, it's just a crude distraction. It's a very crude distraction. That's all that stuff is. I mean, we know, we at least know what they're not putting out in the public. We have this idea of this, yeah, we feel we do, but yeah, we know what they're showing us. It's like, what is that supposed to be? Yeah.
So are we on, so you know how Dan Burich talks about timeline 1 and timeline 2. Which timeline are we on? Are we on timeline 1?
I think we're on timeline 1.3.256. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's it. Did I talk about that on Wednesday? Or was that something I was talking about? And maybe it was just you and I talking. I can't remember. That we know timeline 1 is the real timeline, if we're going to call it that, right? If we're going to look in linear 3D analogies, right? Timeline 1 is the real timeline, or the real version, however you want to look at that. And then timeline 2 is that horrible, terrible timeline that's like where the world is destroyed and blah, 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 and blah, 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 God knows. The shit that they want. In timeline 1, I think, and again, we're going to get into this a lot more, because I honestly think the more I'm looking at this, that we have fractures in that timeline. So like you have, maybe we need to not call it timeline 1 and timeline. Maybe we have to say this is base reality. This is the constructed reality. But in that base reality, there are now multiple timelines, and they're like pages in a book pressed together, where they've been, another one has been created, and another, and they've veered off. And I honestly get this feeling right now that there's like a timeline war going on. And if we talk about things like Looking Glass and that kind of technology, even looking at it from purely a computer simulation aspect, imagine 2 rooms of programmers, and these programmers want to make version 2.0 like this, or version 1.0 like this, but these other guys over here are trying to actually, they want to make it autumn, these guys want to make it winter, they want lovely yellow and red trees, these guys want to have snow everywhere, and they're counter programming. You know, one drops in a piece of code and it renders through, and then the other guys are like, no, we're going to go back to autumn. No, we're autumn, we're not winter yet. They drop in a piece of code which wipes out this piece of code, and then it's, if you even look at it from that aspect, because I am still, I think I said it on Wednesday, looking at the computer simulation theory and looking at these multiple timelines, a la Dan Burish, Bill Wood, etc., they do not preclude each other. It's not this or that. Right. They can very easily, very, very easily be tangents of each other, aspects of each other that are just being focused on from different viewpoints, right? So when I'm looking at this and I'm sitting here going, okay, we have these obviously fucking masks going on in reality. I mean, because it's gone completely fucking crazy, especially in this last month. Are there different versions being dropped in? Like, boom, they put in a new version of patches. Like, if anyone who does gaming, you know, and they, or use programs, they go, we're not putting out a new version of this, we're just putting in a new update because the new update's got some patches to fix the glitches. And they drop that in. Oh, but that patch then causes more shit to fucking glitch out. And then the other guys are like, no, we don't like that patch. We want to go back to using the Times Roman font, not the fucking Sergio font. Okay, but and they throw it back in and it reverts everything back again.
So maybe we should switch our verbal communications from speaking about timeline, and we should be talking in versions or updates, upgrades, because outside of the linear time frame construct and thinking in that way, if we're thinking maybe holistically, like 360-degree vision, you know, we're versions, we're updates, we're renditions. I'm not explaining it right.
No. I got what you're saying. I just want the next update to include no more backaches, and I like my old knees back, please. The ones that don't hurt every fucking day.
What's crazy is that these updates are directly programmable. Like, you've seen videos and studies of people who undergo hypnosis and then suddenly they can speak Mandarin.
Yeah.
Like, you know, or people get hit in the head and suddenly, like, they can do these things. It's like almost as if a little program was just turned on,
or other ones get turned off, right?
It's true. When my son was in grade 1 and grade 2, he couldn't read. And then overnight, literally overnight, he was reading at a grade 5 level. Nobody could explain it. It was just the weirdest thing. From no
That
reading,
was Logan.
Yeah.
That was Logan. Logan went from not reading, refusing to even learn his alphabet. When he was 8 years old, he still couldn't even do his alphabet. He refused to learn his alphabet, to all of a sudden going, okay. And it was like 2 months later, he was reading at a grade 5 level, and I never taught him. I didn't teach him. So we've always said, well, maybe it was just like in the background, because he remembers everything. He's one of these kids who's got like an iron trap in his brain. If you say something in front of him, he'll tell you what it was 5 years later. And I would teach his sisters. So we'd say, like, was it just like literally him sitting there playing trucks in the background on the living room floor while I'm teaching the girls at the dining room table, that he just absorbed it all and then just fucking turned it on himself and was like, okay, fine, I'm going to read. Poof, and now he reads at grade 5 level.
Yeah, and
I don't know.
that's funny that we're both talking about the grade 5 level too. Isn't that strange, right?
And that's because that's the same analogy I've always used, is that he learned literally instantly was reading at a grade 5 level.
Yeah, it's cool.
Hmm.
In the movie, why do you think they showed a reset though? That was bothersome.
Yeah, and it was, yes, it was. It was bothersome because the computer's learning. The programmer is learning. So it tries to fix he doesn't want him to take it down. So it tries to fix. So you get the flukes where the daughter comes in and then goes out, and then goes in as it's going through these kind of fixes, these patches, and then all of a sudden the daughter drops back into his reality. But even that's not a fix, because then, like, you know, everything else starts breaking around him.
Well,
His whole thing was he was going to write a program to bring his daughter back. But was it write the program to bring the daughter back, or was it write the program to open it up to basically, which then forced the computer programmer, the AI, whatever you want to call it, to reset everything so that he would no longer remember that it happened?
Hey, Danny, make sure that you put spoiler in
Yeah,
this video
I will put a
title.
huge
Okay.
spoiler alert notice
Yeah.
on the top when I post the thing, because otherwise everyone's gonna like, oh my god.
Yeah, but at
a
the
huge
end,
spoiler.
he did remember in the end. That's why he asked for the monkey.
No, he didn't. No, he didn't. That was the
No.
part of the
I
program.
agree
That was
with you.
no. He had the same facial expression. It was in the same part. Everything. The only difference was they dropped that piece. That monkey, according to the AI, was the piece that started it all. So
Honestly,
the AI changed the reality and said to him, you tell her to leave the monkey. She leaves the monkey there, then she never goes to chase it in the water, and therefore she never drowns. That wasn't him remembering. That
How do you
was
know?
I will
How do we
take
fully
$1 billion
know that?
on it. That was the program dropped in to change the reality, and then he never fucking tampers with reality, because he will never
Can I
never
say
tamper
something
with it.
about that?
There's nothing for him to want to change, so he is never going to discover that.
You know, he was writing a 3-act structure. Okay, from a
What do you mean?
scriptwriter's perspective.
Okay,
He was writing a 90-minute 3-act structure, but it looks like in the editing, what he did is he decided afterwards to end the story there, but in the script writing process, he's designed it to end about 20 minutes later. So he's done a classic script timing. He's put the plot points in to the minute for a 90-minute movie, and he's put the 3-act structure in, but he's cut it less than halfway from Act 3, the end of Act 3. So I believe what he did is that he'd written a story that had rounded and tied up all the loose ends himself. He did it, but it wasn't dramatic enough for him when he watched it in playback. And also he's re-edited some of his storyline, because the shots that he was using was not, you can tell they were not designed into the script, but he did it as an editing afterthought. So I think in his editing, he cut the editing, and that means that his original film has more to it. And if you ask him, I'm sure he'll explain what he did and why he did that, because the timing of Act 1 was 30 minutes. It reached to the point, the climax of Act 1 was his beginning to, he started to hear his daughter's voice, and then the climax was he saw his daughter. And then it goes into act 2 where he has to investigate. So he starts completely going through the investigation, and he got to the midpoint, which should be at 45 minutes. And he got to the midpoint where he can see the action that he needs to take. And he takes his action, and then he reaches his point of no return, which was where it was about the time where he left the note on the video. That's his point of no return, to say play, and he goes off and he kills that dude.
Yeah.
Okay, that could be the point of no return, but I think the point of no return was when he put the sticker on the video and said play. Then they complete act 2 to a climax where his wife's face glitches.
Yeah.
And act 3 should be 30 minutes.
Yep.
And
But it was like 10. It was like 10 minutes.
Well,
So
then
he
they
cut
had
out. He wrote, he would never have written it like that, because no script writer would write that. They would write a 3-act structure being 3 acts, with the first act and the last act being of equal timing, and the second act having the midpoint in the exact middle of the film. But he did it in editing, you can tell. So what did he write at the end? Because it's obviously written to be at least 15, 20 minutes longer.
okay.
And I think what he did is tied up the loose end.
There's, I'm really glad you picked up on that, because it really, it totally reeks of the whole, like the movie that has the plot twist that they didn't design into the movie. You know what I mean? Like that last scene, I think just totally catapulted this film into like an existential horror vibe. And I feel like they only did it just because it needed that extra ooh,
Or
plot twist. And
or was it the sweet, nice ending?
Yes.
Was it the
Exactly.
sweet, nice ending
He's
that would
written
make
it in
most
classic
people be
Hollywood
like,
structure.
oh my God, reality. And then they get the sweet, nice ending, a reset. Don't be afraid of a reset, because look, now the reset's beautiful.
Yeah. And the guy would be alive. The guy who hung himself would still be alive.
And that's what I was going to say. I wonder if that's maybe this part of the pieces that he cut out was the professor being back alive again, but now he's not doing that simulation theory. Now he's actually doing quantum theory to do with something else.
He wrote a classic Hollywood storyline because he had to exaggerate certain epic moments to make it more visually appealing and to make the climaxes fix, right? So he's done a classic Hollywood 3-act structure, and he's done it in a mainstream writing style. But I'm sure at the end when he watched it, because he wrote it and he directed it, and the editing is, there's something a bit unplanned about the editing.
Yeah.
There's some shots that he's done that it looks like he's taken like scene 1 and scene 2 and intercut between the two, just to make it look like flashback or memory or something like that. But that's an editing thing. So he's done that in the editing, and I think when he played it to people, they were disappointed with his ending. It didn't have the right impact. So most people said you should have just ended it there, and he did. At the end of the day, he agreed, okay, we'll just end it there.
How free? You know what that reminds me of? It reminds me of what Mary Poppins said. A spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down, you know?
Yeah.
And that's
Yes.
Hold on, Mercedes?
Also, how free was he in his cutting?
The thing is did he produce it? If he hadn't produced it by his own 100% financing, then he hasn't got 100% control.
No.
Therefore, it might have been another one's decision to cut it like that.
Yep.
Yeah,
and
so it's a good thing to think about asking.
Yes, really. I would really be very much interested in his answer.
Question?
Well, maybe I'll just cut this one little segment out and send it to him and have him listen to that and then say, you want to come on the show and talk about this?
My question is, okay, the Mandela effects that we perceive in our own personal realities. Okay, most games are designed to be pretty linear until they start going open world here in the last, I don't know, 5-6 years, and
Yeah.
we've been open world in this simulation for a long time. So they had to have put in some sorts of safeguards to limit our ability to affect the creation, or else it would have broke down even sooner than it started to now.
Okay, I'm going to throw a curveball on that.
Okay.
Do we know that it's that?
We don't know.
We don't know. This game may have only been going on for 5 years. This game may have only been going on for the last 10 years. And everything else that we think we know is just part of the program.
I think it's all part of the program. But
Or 10 minutes, yeah, Sony. Go ahead, Leonid. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Just
okay. So the first clue was something was going to happen was when we all seen the sign that Nelson Mandela sign on the chair at CERN. Correct? That was our first public clue. But I think I've noticed things even like in the 90s that were kind of glitchy.
well,
So
Cynthia Sue Larson, who I'm going to be interviewing on Wednesday, she's a physicist, and she has been documented what she calls shifting reality, i.e. Mandela effects, since 1999. 1998 is when she had her first moment of like, and that's why I'm having her on, because I want to talk about that. Here's my thing is that 2015 was the year of the Mandela effect. Once I kind of got that under my belt, you know, you kind of go, okay, I got this sorted. When you start looking into your past, now I can spot all kinds of fucking Mandela effects that happened to me in the 80s, in the 90s, all kinds of things. But it's almost like you have to go through the slam punch first of what's in the now shifting before all of a sudden then you take that knowledge with you and you can go back to your past memories and go, oh, what's that? Oh fuck! Now that I know that this exists, these quantum fluctuations, these glitches in the matrix, these Mandela effects, the what the fuck effects, you can then go back and review certain things that happened in your past and go, see, I didn't really pay much attention to that, but you know what? I guarantee that was a glitch. Or, gee, I remember when that incident happened and I was like, what the fuck? That's insane. And now you go, oh, now I see it for what it was.
That's actually classic 1984 logic. That like if you don't have language to express something, it's hard to think about it. And what that Mandela effect gave us was language.
Yeah, yep, zero, very true. It not even so much language is ideas. It gave us this idea. It opened us up to the idea that this is happening. This is a probability, a possibility. It is an absolute that's happening. And that once you got that, like I say, that piece under your belt, like once you can comprehend this piece, then you take that with you and you can review other incidents that happen and go, now I understand what that was.
Think about that. I'm sorry.
Next point would be, and you'll probably be able to comment on this, Don, would be if it's our own individual realities or everybody's reality in the bubble, okay, and we are affecting that reality, wouldn't that mean that we don't have to do anything physical? It's just a matter of how we think?
Well, see, that would go along with what I'm saying. So this is what came to me. So like you hear these stories of when the ships came to America or whatever, and the Indians came to the shore, but they never saw the ships. The only Indian that saw the ships was the shaman. So what does that mean? Is that two realities merging? Or like once it's seen, it cannot be unseen? I mean, like, even the color blue, I understand, wasn't even really seen up until a certain time. So what is that? What do these things mean? I guess
So,
that's my
this
question.
I'm saying, like, is it? So I've heard the whole thing about the color blue as well.
Yeah.
Was that an update?
Yeah.
Right? An update in the spectrum, or was it an update, i.e., you have to remember, all colors are made of light and frequency. So if our atmosphere is different, the light coming through would filter through, and maybe it didn't have the blue frequencies in it. Then all of a sudden our atmosphere changes, and boom, there you go. There's the color blue suddenly because of the atmospheric change. So there's different ways of looking at it. But the thing with the whole thing of, like, you know, Christopher Columbus idiot and the ships coming towards the New World, etc., and the people there not being able to see the ship because they had no reference point. And that's what I'm saying. Even with this, with the Mandela Effect, now we have a reference point, so we can go look back at our past and go, oh, bing, 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 bing. Is that the same thing? The next time ships pulled up to the harbor, you guarantee that all the Indians saw the fucking ships, because now they had a reference point to it.
But it's just weird.
Was it not part of their programming? Were they still running on another program?
So I mean, was there a merge? Was there some kind of merge?
Hey, I have a question.
Hold on, just Penny, give me 1 second.
Okay.
Did you watch Westworld yet, Dawn?
Yeah, I haven't watched the end yet.
At the very end, you start to realize there's a Westworld, the Western, then there's a Westworld that is like a Shogun, ancient Japan, and there's a Westworld that all these simulations are all running simultaneously at the same time everywhere. And here's ancient Japan, and you'll probably got one that's like, here's the old West, but then here's another one that is maybe Victorian England, and here's another one that is. So if these simulations are all running concurrently, if they're all running together, and then all of a sudden two of them touch, which is what you have happen in the Westworld, right? Because all of a sudden they start waking up, the bots start waking up, and they jump and they end up going into the one that's the ancient fucking Japan, and they're fighting with the local shogun and the ninjas, and you know, they're country and western guy, and the fucking shooting ninjas with a 6-shooter, and the ninjas are like, oh, what the fuck is this shit? This is not in the rules. And there's a disconnect, and some of those characters wake up and go, what the fuck is going on here? And it's like the mind virus. The mind virus spreads as the characters are awake in Westworld, as they start to spread through the other characters and explain to them, then they wake up, and then they start spreading it as well.
Well, that's kind of what the ME did. But I have this question, okay? Danny, do you remember back in 2016, the Mandela movie was talked about? Is this movie the same one?
Yes.
That was talked
Yes.
about in 2016?
Yes.
Now, it just kind of disappeared in 2017 and 2018. What is,
And then boom, it reappeared again.
Boom. Yeah.
Yep.
Here it is in front of our eyes. What is that about? And I do think that there's something there too.
Is that one of those things? Now, could it be something simple as he came up with the idea, he presented it, he made maybe a brief clip of what it wants to present this movie idea, and then he took 2 years of hardcore fundraising for him to raise the money to get it together, and therefore it wasn't until it was that it all of a sudden becomes a set thing? Is that what it was? It could very easily be that, because we hear that kind of stuff in independent film all the time, where like they've got to come up with the funding, they got to find a studio who'll let you get this stuff done, et cetera, et cetera. I can only imagine what the Hollywood fucking headaches on that shit is.
Usually it stays within the consciousness, you know, like you'd go, oh wow, so-and-so is making this movie, right? Oh, and he's raising money. And so you understand the 2 years in between, right? Because there's still some type of talk about it, right? I can't wait till it comes out. Or there's always this little thread that keeps it attached.
But with the insanity, and I would say normally I agree with you, except with the insanity that we've been experiencing for the last 3 years, do you keep in your mind that there's a Mandela Effect movie coming out sometime in the future? I wouldn't have. Hell, I just discovered there's one of my new X-Men movies is coming out this summer. I'm like, and everyone's like, yeah, we talked about this like a year ago. And I'm like, oh, fuck, right, I forgot about that. Right? This is one of my favorite movies. Our minds are so overwhelmed now with so much fucking shit that I don't know. Maybe we're at the end of our memory span, and so like when your hard drive is almost full, and you start going, okay, I got to throw out a lot more shit now to keep the operating systems operating. Okay, I better get rid of that file, get rid of this file, get rid of this file.
Yep, what you just said there, Dee. Anybody noticing how it's like even obviously as far back as the 1980s, it's like, yeah, your memories are just fading out. I'm literally just, and some stuff that happened in 2016 seems like more dreamy to me now, because I guess because whatever you went through that was so rough, even recently, it's becoming more of a faded memory.
Yeah, listen, even Spain, and that was only 3.5 weeks ago, folks. Even that is like a memory that's like more like something that happened 3 years ago.
I think it's part of what we're going through. It has to be part of what we're going through. Yeah, if it's fading out, it's for a reason. That's what I'm looking at. If it's fading out, it's for a reason.
Well, and that's the whole thing too. And that's the one question I keep having is as these timelines are changing, or as these new updates are coming in, which erases old shit, we carry a memory of something, an event that took place in our life in the past. But now perhaps it's not there anymore. So now you have a memory of a memory, but we've talked about having no emotional attachment to it anymore, because it's more like a memory of something you saw in a movie. It's not a memory of something you experienced.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. You just totally made something click, and I'm so glad you did. Oh, yes. I love when that happens. Okay. So the Mandela effects, you know what that is? The Mandela effects are like data that's been erased and written over, but it's still there. Anyone that knows about how data is written on a computer, when you delete a file on your computer, it doesn't delete the actual ones and zeros. It just deletes the map to those ones and zeros. So that's why, like, even if you delete your files, all that data is still there on the hard drive. It just gives permission to write over it, right? And so whenever you recover data, you can, there are layers, and even if you completely write over the layer of data, there's still traces of the underlying original data there.
Yeah, and that was the whole joke with Hillary Clinton and saying that she wiped out her server, and everyone, and I knew several tech guys who were like, fucking give me her server, I'll get it all back. Even if she ran a fucking magnet over it, I can still fucking get it back. Because there are people who do that, who can actually sift it. We saw that in Fringe, too. And I think they've even done that on the X-Files, where they've gone through and done things where it's like, you've got a shadow over here because they've done a rewrite, they've done a rewrite over that space, and they can go kind of scrape away the surfaces of code to get down to the code that was actually deleted, right? Yeah.
Holy cow, I've never thought of the Mandela effect that way. But I mean, and it begs the question, well, why are they needing to write over these little spots? To me, that just seems like.
But we don't know. But this is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
We don't know what the greater change is. We don't know what greater change happened in an unforeseen realm of politics, for example. A change is made to put certain people in a certain position, to make a certain mission turn out a certain way. And there are ripples that go throughout that are subtle changes that can happen.
So when a reality gets rewritten, there are these micro details that sometimes what was written over doesn't match what was original.
Yep.
For whatever reason. And we can remember those because they're underneath that layer of data still.
Oh, did you see what Roseanne just wrote? Oh my God.
No
Maybe
space on the hard drive.
on the hard drive.
And that's why I'm talking about the whole thing about why we have to go to sleep and why sometimes you can't sleep and sometimes why you fall asleep in the middle of the day for no fucking reason, or you start literally having a breakdown moment in the middle of the day where all of a sudden you're just like, what the fuck? What was I doing? Holy fucking shit, where am I? Because there's no room on the hard drive, so to speak. Exactly.
And what's funny is they say that if you go like 3 days without sleeping, you start to experience visual hallucinations. But like maybe those hallucinations really are reality breaking down because like you ain't slept.
Okay, I want to share something with you guys that it's just clicked now. A lifelong question I've had has just clicked. You've just answered it. So when I was a baby, I used to do this thing, which was remember my memories. So every night before I go to sleep, from crib until the age of about 10 or 11, I would run through all my memories until back to crib. So imagine when I'm 2, I'm remembering all the major points in my life that go all the way back to the crib memory. So I remember exactly my crib memories until now. I always wondered why I did that. Like I came into this world knowing that I must be aware of my memories. That's the one rule that I've lived by. I have to remember my memories. Every night before I sleep, I must remember my memories. And I would run them through. So I would run through like that birthday party. Okay, that trip I had. Okay, I remember now when my nan and grandpop came over. Okay, I remember last Christmas. Okay, I remember that incident. Okay, I remember when I fell off my bike. Okay, I remember that. And then I'll go all the way back to, and I remember the toys in my cot. I remember this toy, this toy, this toy, this toy, this toy, and I remember my mum coming home. All the way back, every single night. And until now, I've always had this question, why did I do that? Why was I aware at such, like as a baby, that I have to remember my memories?
Wow.
And what was I training for? Why was I doing that? It's as if I knew before I came into this world that I have to remember my memories, and that was the only rule that I had to live by and complete. Because there's that age where you don't remember, right? And I knew I would not remember these things, so I went all the way back every night. And I think that's what we are pointing to. It's how we forget things, how they draw back into a sort of like blur state of mind. But you can consciously remember your memories, so therefore you remember all your memories. But you don't remember the actual incident. You remember a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy.
Exactly.
And that's what I've been doing every night, remembering a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy, so that I don't forget the original.
I mean, I did something similar, but because of my daddy, as he disappeared because he went to America, I grabbed to all my memories I had with him, till the first memory I had with him. I grabbed
because
onto
you were
this.
aware that you might forget, right? You're aware.
Yes, exactly. I didn't want to forget my daddy.
Yeah.
So.
And you can remember the copy of the memory. You can't remember the actual memory.
I can't
you can
remember the memory.
Of the copy of the copy.
So
and this is something I've been talking about, because I started what you're talking about, Amina. I just started doing that in the last 2-3 years. Taking it and laying in bed at night and start going back and go, okay, let's pick a random age, and like randomly going, okay, grade 3. And trying to remember, for example, do I remember my first day of school of grade 3? Do I remember who my teacher was? Do I remember my classmates? Do I remember any incidences? Do I remember? And looking at years and doing that like back, so starting at like say the age of 16 and going backwards and trying to figure out, and there are entire years where I have no memories, or I have one memory of grade 3, or I have someone's loud cat. That was really, really funny.
Yeah, that's my cat again.
Your cat again, Amina. But here's the thing. It's like Amina said, it's a memory of a memory of a memory. There's no emotional attachment to it. It's like remembering a scene in a movie. That's it. There's no continuity anymore. So it's, for example, I have a memory of me, and I always say it's the earliest memory I have. And I'm sitting in a mud puddle. And I have one of my dolls with me, and I'm giving my doll a bath in the mud puddle. And my mom used to always say to me, you can't possibly remember that. You were only 2 years old. There's no possible way you can remember that. I'm like, no, I can clearly remember, because I can remember taking my doll's clothes off because I didn't want them to get muddy because I knew my mom would be mad at me. And I had this conversation, and one of my aunts started laughing her head off and going, oh my God, this is when we lived in Nova Scotia. They had come to visit us, and she says she pulled in the driveway, and there I was sitting at the end of the driveway, butt ass naked, in a mud puddle, with my doll, with my clothes neatly piled on the deck, and my doll's clothes neatly piled because I'd taken everything out so they wouldn't get muddy, so my mom couldn't get angry. And I'm like, I clearly remember that. But it is now I have a clearer memory of me having the conversation with my aunt and my mom than I do of the memory. So my memory of that memory is actually run through a conversation that I had when I was about 15, 16. Fuck off, fly. With my mom. I have no actual memory of that incident anymore. It's a memory of a memory of a memory of a memory.
It's about the frontal cortex being the short-term memory and the amygdala being the emotional memory and the bits in between being long-term memory. So you know when people get dementia and their short-term or their long-term memory comes back more in focus than the short-term memory because they have a degeneration of the brain at the front of the brain.
Yeah.
This is why when I'm teaching kids, I always teach them like any fact that I want them to remember, I always teach it with emotion so that they remember it better, like make it fun and happy. They'll remember that. Like you'd remember a school play or a sports day, but you won't remember your geography lesson or your history lesson or your maths, right?
Yeah.
You don't remember any of those lessons. Those are all like one big blur, but you remember the actual activities where you had fun. Yeah, or even the negative emotions you remember, but you wouldn't want to make sure that happens. So the amygdala is the part of the brain where we keep emotional memories. It remains there from an earlier age than the frontal cortex. So all the emotion, like you just said, you had fear. You remember it because the fear stored it in another part of the brain.
Interesting.
And like, for example, I still remember, like in high school, I memorized pi out to 50 digits and memorized it to a song. I still remember it.
Yep. The pi song. Yeah.
Like, you know, and so like, if you put something to a song, you can recall it 20 years later. Like,
yeah.
Exactly. But you see, when we consciously remember something, the copy of the copy, we're using the frontal cortex, which isn't going to store it for long. It's like revising for an exam. You're not going to store that information.
And
you're going to only store it until the exam. Yeah. So when you take something from the past and you remember it using the frontal cortex, you're going to remember it short term. But if you program your brain to remember that memory, it will log in to another part of the brain. The brain's like a computer. So like the frontal cortex is just software, but the the amygdala is part of the hardware.
So, Amina, when you were telling your story earlier about the business cards and the phone number, you stated for us to, when we look at things, and then Danny talked about her crystal, you said to look at them in detail.
Yeah.
Is that because you want, I missed the point when you said look at them in detail. Is that to solidify the memory, or just to render it correctly, or what?
Or
To
to note
render
when
it
it's
correctly.
not, or to note when it's
Render it.
not rendered correctly.
Okay.
Yes.
That's what I was thinking.
I would
Okay.
think that'd be
But
imprinting.
if you want to make a full imprint of it, use emotions. So look at the crystal and say, I love this crystal, or I'm so happy I have this crystal, or look at the flaws, I love them, or look at the pictures. They're so I'm bring emotion into it, and it becomes more solid as a memory or as an image, as an experience. So it can't change. It can't.
Okay. Right. Okay. Got it.
It can't mutate into something else. And so that you look at it again another time and go, I'm sure it wasn't like that.
Yeah. Interesting.
It's just like I say too, like when I was on drugs and I'd stay up for days and I'd see all that shit. They were doing all kinds of downloads and crap, and I'm not updating at night.
Yeah. Yeah. Look.
Like there's that, that when in 2016 I was head of a house in a school. So 1/4 of the school was in my house. We were the dragons. And for sports day, our house was secretly, we were learning how to sing We Are the Champions, all the lyrics, and we were going through it every day. So I would play YouTube in my room, and I would close all the windows so that nobody could see us and nobody could hear us. And I would do it like at the time when everyone was outside, and we'd practice. So we had our sports day in March 2016. And, or was it 2017? It was definitely in March. And everyone was enjoying singing it. So what we did, our plan was to get the soundtrack for the stadium and to put our songs into the soundtrack without letting the sports department know about it. So that when in the stadium, we all get to sing and all the other houses won't get the Spirit Cup, but we will. So everyone, there must have been about 150 kids in my house. Everyone knew that song. 2 weeks after sports day, the ending of the song changed. And 150 kids knew automatically that the Mandela Effect is a thing. Because when they came back to me and said, I've listened to that song again and I can't find the copy that you were using, and I said, oh, it's changed. This is called Mandela Effect. They were like, oh, okay. What do you mean? And I told them that these things are happening if you pay attention. They're like, oh. And then every other week they'd come back and tell me I found a new Mandela Effect. I found a new Mandela Effect. I got a new one. I got a new one. They accepted it. Like 150 kids were like, oh, okay. So
it's funny because
they enjoyed the song so much that they knew for sure. They knew for sure. No one had a doubt. Yeah, of the world. That line.
Yep. That's so funny. But you know what? I find that with the kids. The kids, they see it, they recognize it, but it doesn't have the, and I'm going to use the word urgency, for lack of a better term. It doesn't have the urgency to the kids as it does to us. Does that make sense? They see it and they go, yeah, no, yeah, it's really weird. Fuck yeah, it's really weird. So what are we going to do tomorrow? Whereas we're like, what the fuck? What the fuck? Like
what I was saying earlier.
Yeah, we're in a parallel dimension. Okay, what's for dinner?
Yeah.
Yeah, what I was saying though, like it can go both ways. What are they trying to achieve? Multiple things, I'm sure.
Yeah, always.
I mean, that'd be an awful easy thing to just go, oh, that's the Mandela effect.
Yeah,
Oh,
and then you just
I
blow
know
it off
what-
and go like, yep.
Yeah. That's what's going to happen with the movie going mainstream.
That's
is
what
people are
I
gonna brush
think.
it off. Yeah, it's just a Mandela effect. It's going to be so normalized that
they can get away with all these changes in much
Yeah.
easier way.
Well, they
Yeah,
got to find a
exactly.
way of presenting it to the public in a way that
My
is
kid-
non-threatening.
Like a meme
That
kind of.
is, and that could be the reason why the ending of the movie was changed to what it was, because the ending became very non-threatening, didn't it? It was like, la, I
Oh,
got
it's just
everything
Mandela
I wished
effect.
for. Look at me.
We don't know
My
what it is.
reality is exactly what I wanted it to be.
Yeah.
The question is, what started those effects in that movie that isn't answered?
It's because we don't have any answers.
Looking Glass. They
Could
go
be.
back.
It's one of the
they go
theories.
they go back in the history to change an outcome of the future the
Yeah.
way they think they want it.
Yeah,
But
that's one of the theories, but it's not. And
I
you
think
have to
because,
remember, in
you know-
his reality, how it happened didn't matter. His waking moment was through trauma, and that became the consuming point for him, was to get his daughter back, to realize reality is a fallacy, reality is a simulation, therefore is nothing but code, therefore I can change it because I'm a coder. I should be able to figure out how to do this.
You know, like earlier this year, that movie came out called Yesterday.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet.
Okay, so I watched it in the cinema, and it had the 3-act structure, and I think it was probably like conceived as a film much later than he did, than David conceived his, but it came out faster because maybe it had just more backing and it was easier. So, yeah, money, right? So when it had that 3-act structure, it tied up all the loose ends at the end. The villain got her justification, that kind of thing. It did it classically. So it was like a classic 190 minutes exact. The thing is that it was a little more creative than your classic Hollywood, but no one talked about it.
I remember the
Nobody
hype before it
talked about
came out. I remember all the hype before it came out. We watched, the trailer was put in the UnFuckers room. We're like, oh, I can't wait to see this. And then we're just like, I haven't seen it yet.
Because
and
it was
normally I should be
closed-ended.
like,
If it's something is closed-ended and it's not deserving a sequel, no one's going to talk about it. But if you leave something open-ended and you cut it off, people start talking about it like we are now.
Yeah.
Exactly, kind of like the ending of Inception, right? Like the ending of Inception was like, it left it open-ended and you're like, oh my gosh, right? And it makes you think about it and it makes you uncomfortable. But like as soon as you close up with a nice bookend, it's like, okay. It's like,
Yep.
we don't know what the Mandela effect was. It's a weird thing, but let's, back to life.
yeah.
I just had an interesting thought real quick. It just popped in my head. Hasn't it been like, if that movie came out this year, hasn't it been like 20 years since the release of The Matrix, 1999? I just thought that was
it's been
interesting.
that long. It's been that long for that movie.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 1999, honey.
Exactly.
Think about that.
And I didn't want.
Timing of
So
this.
on the 20-year anniversary, we sat here and we watched The Matrix in our house. So guys, listen, I gotta go. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm exhausted, tired. I'm fading really, really quickly now. I must be at maximum hard drive capacity. So I gotta go to sleep.
Mary, you have your show on Wednesday, or is it just?
Oh, that's
Show
That's
on
what-
Wednesday, Transpicuous Views with Cynthia Sue Larson. That'll be Wednesday at the usual time, but it'll be Transpicuous Views. It won't be the Unfuck It discussion. So that will be on Wednesday. And then the Wednesday after that is Christmas. And the Wednesday after that is New Year's. So on the following Sunday, I told John this, and I think I put it in one of the last videos I did. On Sunday the 29th, instead of having a movie night, we're just going to have a chat, like so we can all get together and hang out together. So it's not so long in between our shows and stuff. That's it. Okay, guys, I love you. I'm gonna say goodnight. Everyone, you guys have a good day. Be
Good
random,
night, all.
be ridiculous, be original, do something new.